Hello, I am Rohit. Now I am gonna explain you about the backend web development by using the example of the Twitter Clone API project, and this is the code of the Twitter Clone API project. And here you can see the set of API calls, and the primary objective of this set of APIs is to facilitate the backend web development of your social media platform. These APIs empowers users to perform essential actions such as registration, login, and tweet posting, engagement with the tweets, and the management of their followers and following list. In the backend web development, I have carefully created a Node.js application using the Express.js server to build an HTTP server in this project. And this server seamlessly works with the SQLite database to handle data storage and retrieval. I will show you the SQLite database in the SQLite CLI. See, we have to use the command line utility like SQLite 3, Twitter, or I will directly enter the command. See, here the database has been opened. Now let's try dot tables command which we can use to see the tables. See, these are the tables present in the database. Let's, like, for example, select star from example like table and click enter. See, here we can see the details of the table. To exit from this SQLite database, we have to use the dot exit command and click enter. See how this gonna works. And these APIs form the backbone of a web-based social platform similar to Twitter. Moreover, I have implemented authentication and authorization measures to ensure user data security and privacy. Now I am gonna explain you the full structure of this code and some API calls. Coming to the first line, const express is equals to require of express. What is this require of function will do? This is a common Node.js method for including external modules or libraries in our application. In this case, it's importing the Express module, which is a web application framework for Node.js. The require of functions such as the Express package in our project's dependencies and loads it into the application. See how it's going on. The require of function first go to the package.json file and go to the dependencies and searches for the Express module and loads into the Node.js application. And coming to the next line, const app is equals to express of. The line const app is equals to express of is creating an instance of the Express.js application. Let's break down what this line does. Express of. This part of the code is invoking the express function, which is exported by the Express.js framework. The express_of function is used to create a new instance of an Express.js application. Const app is equals to express_of function. The result of invoking express_of is assigned to a constant variable named app. See, here we can see app. This variable now holds an Express.js application instance. In summary, this line of code setups the foundation of our Node.js application to use the Express.js framework. The app variable represents our Express.js application, and we can use it to define routes and middlewares and HTTP requests and responses. Here we can see some HTTP handling requests, and here we can see the post request, and we can see many API calls like get request also. And coming to the next line, const path is equals to require of path module. The path variable is being declared and assigned the value returned by the require of path statement. Let's break down what this line of code does. Require of path module. This is using the Node.js require of function to import a built-in module called path. The path module provides the utilities for working with the file and directory paths, helping to manage and manipulate file system paths in a cross-platform manner. After importing the path module, it assigns to a constant variable named path. This variable now holds various path-related functions and properties that can be used throughout our Node.js application. See, I will give you an example like console.log of path.join of, and this is the example path. See, now I will run and show you in the console. Normal app.js. Click enter and we can see here is the path. Here is the output of this line. The path.joinof method is used to concatenate and normalize file paths, making it suitable for use in different operating systems. And coming to the next line, see here, this line imports the open function from the SQLite module. By using the destructuring, we are extracting the open function from the module and assigning it to a constant named open. After importing this statement, we can use the open function to open a SQLite database and start working with it in our Node.js application. And coming to the next line, see here, const SQLite 3 is equals to require of SQLite 3 module. The require function is used in Node.js to load an external modules, and loading the SQLite 3 module, which provides an interface for interacting with the SQLite databases. And coming to the next line, app.use of express.json of. This line in our code sets up the middleware in our Express.js application to handle JSON data. What is mean by JSON? JavaScript object notation. Let's break down what this line does. Express.json of is a built-in middleware provided by Express.js Framework. It is used to parse incoming JSON requests when we include this middleware. See here, we can see that in app.http file, here we are sending the post request in a JSON format. This can be parses into parses parsed by the app.use of express.json of middleware automatically. So when a client send a post request or a put request with a JSON payload, the express.json of will parse the JSON data from the request body and makes it accessible to our root handlers. This allows us to work with JSON data in our API endpoints easily. And coming to the next line, const JWT is equals to require of JSON Web Token. This line imports the JSON Web Token library or module. JSON Web Tokens are used for authentication and authorization in a web applications. By importing this library, we can create and verify JWTs which are commonly used for authentication in web application. What is mean by authentication? Authentication is the process of verifying the identity of a user system or entity trying to access a resource or service. It answers the question, who are you? What is authorization? Authorization is the process of determining what actions or resources an authenticated users or entity is allowed to access or perform. It answers the question, what are you allowed to do? And coming to the next line, const bcrypt is equals to require of bcrypt. This line imports the bcrypt library or module. Bcrypt is a popular library for securely hashing passwords. It provides functions for hashing passwords and verifying hashed passwords. It is used to securely store and compare user passwords, enhancing the security for user authentication. Hash of and compare of function is provided by bcrypt module. And coming to the next line, const db path is equals to path dot join of underscore underscore dir name comma twitter clone dot db. It is the database for our project. I have used the path dot join of method along with the directory name variable to create file path for a database file, that is the twitter clone dot db in our Node.js application. Now this piece of code indicates initializing the database and server. Here we used let db connection object is equals to null. This variable will be used to store the database connection object. Here I have used const initialize db and server function, and I have used async keyword because the logic present in this function has asynchronous operations. When an operation is asynchronous, it allows a program to continue executing the other task without waiting for the asynchronous operations to complete. Here, try in the try block, I write the piece of code like db connection is equals to await open of file name and driver. What is this? File name is equals to db path. This line opens a SQLite database connection using the open-off function, and file name is equals to dbpath specifies the path to the SQLite database file, which is defined earlier as dbpath. Here we can see. And coming to the driver indicates SQLite 3.database. This specifies the driver to use for the SQLite database, in this case SQLite 3.database. And consider here with I didn't use async keyword and await keyword, and try running it. See, it returns the promise object. Which returns the promise object? This line returns the promise object. So for to get rid of it, we use the async and await keywords. See, now it works perfectly. And if any error occurs in this while initializing the database and server, it will logs the error message and exits from the process. See, now I'll explain few API calls. Coming to the first API call, here you can see the syntax like app dot method of path comma request handler. The handler function executed once the path gets matched with the requested URL. After matching the requested path, it will execute the handler function, and the logic present in the handler function is executed successfully. See, when the first of all we have to register in a Twitter app before directly log in to the Twitter application. So the client sends the data to the server like username, password, and name and gender. See, when I send the request to the server, it indicates the user already exists text. This is the response body, and here we can see the status code 400, that is indicates the client error like 4xs. Here is the bad request. It indicates the status text. See, this is the response header, and this is the response body. See, when I open, why this shows why the text shows like this. Open the SQLite database and see why it shows like this. Run this query. SQL query. Check whether the user already exists or not. See, here we can see Apala Rohit, and the details of the user already exist. So we have to register with a new details. First it will check when I send the request, it will checks, it will see the whether the register API endpoint is successfully matched with the URL, and after matching it will execute the handler function, and the logic present in the handler function will be executed successfully. First of all, the request object carries the data sent by the user, and it will be accessed by using request object dot body, and by using the destructuring we use the data present in the object like username, password, name, gender. Here you may get a doubt like the request data is in the JSON format, how it will be parsed automatically. Here we can use the built-in middleware function, that is app.use of express.js now. It will parses the JSON format automatically, and we can use the data in present in the request object. By using it, we write the SQL query and it will checks whether the data is present in the database or not. We use the db connection object dot getOff method. GetOff method which retrieves the single row from the database. And if the data is database response is not is equals to undefined, it represents the user details already present in the database. So it will sends the response status as 400, that indicates the bad request as status text, and it will send the text as user already exists. So if I want to register as a new user, we have to change the details like Apala and Apala and like use Patel and save. When I run this code, when I send the request, see here we can see the user created successfully text and 200 as status code and OK as status text in the response headers, and this is the response body. And now we can check the database whether the user created registered successfully or not. See, here are the details: Patel, Rohit, Apala, and etc. This is the encrypted password which is converted by using the bcrypt, and I will explain it in further API call. And now exit from the database. How it will work? When I click on the send request, the data will be sent, and it will check whether it is not is equal to undefined and the user is not present in the database, and it will goes to the if condition, and it will checks the password whether the password length is less than 6. The length of the password must be less than 6. If the password is greater than 6, it will shows the it will send the response as password is too short, and the password is greater than 6, and it will goes to the else block. See, here we used bcrypt package. The bcrypt module provides hash of method which is used to encrypt the password in a safe and secure manner. We used this hashed password, and we inserted the data in the database. The hashed password is inserted in the database, which is used which can't be manipulated or stolen by anyone. And after successfully inserting the data, it will send the status code as 200 indicates the success, and OK text, and it will send the user created successfully text. And after registering, the user should log in into the page. So the user should log in. So we use the post request for login also. See here, you can see content type indicates application or JSON. It is the REST principle. What is REST principle? We follow from some principles for this backend applications, like sending the JSON format to the server, and the server will send JSON format data to the client. It is the one of the REST principle. Following REST principles is a key to the backend web applications. See, I have given the details like username, Joe Biden, and I have sent the password also. See, when I click on send requests, see, when I click on send request, here it will giving me the JWT token. What is this JWT token? I will show you. See, when I click on the send request in the post request, post login API, it will check whether the API endpoint matches with the URL or not. And after matching, it will execute the handler function, and the logic present in the handler function will be executed successfully. First of all, we have to copy this JWT token and use in further API calls. See, copy these JWT token so we can use it in further API calls. See, I am using this JWT token in several API calls. Here I am copying this, and I am using this in several API calls and changing it in all. You can observe it. See, because only the authenticated user can log in and do the activities of this data. See, now I have used this JWT token in all subsequent requests, that only the authenticated user can access the tweets and delete the tweets and update the tweet, etc. And coming to the code, see, here is the post request. It defines the post route login using Express.js. This route is designed for user login. When a post request is made to login endpoint, it expects the data in JSON format. See here, it will send the data in the JSON format. In this request body, the data includes the username and password, and open app.js file, and it checks if the user with the provided username exists in the database by executing the following SQL query. If there is no user with the provided details, it will return the DB response as undefined, and it will send the response object as 400 status code and invalid user as a status text. If the user provides the correct details which is present in the database, it will returns DB response not equal to undefined, and it proceeds with the compare with the hashed password stored in the database. See, we use the compare password and await. We use await because it returns the promise object to get rid of it, we use the await keyword. We use the bcrypt module, which provides the compare of function and compares the hashed password. See, this is the encrypted password. It will compares whether this encrypted password is matched with the, see here, bidden at the rate 123. If it matches with this password, it will goes to the if block and it will see whether this is true or false, and if the password doesn't match, it will sends the response to the client as invalid password and 400 status code as a bad request status text. If it matches successfully, it will runs the SQL query and it will retrieve the data, users data, and it will store the data in the payload like username, name, and user ID. And the payload now used for the creation of the JWT token. See here, it is used to the JWT dot sign off method is used to create the JWT token for this particular user. We use the secret string for this for creating and identifying in other API calls. And in the summary, this code defines the login endpoint where a user can provide their username and password. It checks the provided credentials, and if they are valid, it issues a JWT token and can be used for authentication and authorization. C. Authenticate JWT token. Authenticate JWT token is a middleware function that takes three parameters. They are request object, response object, and next. What is middleware function? Middleware functions are used to perform operations on the incoming request before passing it to the root handler. It first checks if the authorization value is not is equals to undefined or not. If it is not is equals to undefined, it will split the authorization header with a separator space. We use the array method split off to separate with a space. Authorization header typically consists of bearer keyword and JWT token. We want this JWT token to be stored in the token value. So we use the split off method and we separated with a space and we have created a array, and we used the array indexing and we have stored the token value in this token value variable. First of all, whether the user provided the token value or not, we have to check it first. If the token value is undefined, then it will send the response as 401, which is indicates the unauthorized request. See, I will show you an example. If I didn't give this JWT token, see, I didn't give this JWT token and I have made a request, it will shows invalid JWT token and 401 unauthorized as we see in the code. See, 401 and invalid JWT token. We have provided an empty JWT token, so it is unauthorized. So we have to provide the JWT token to get rid of this. And after providing the JWT token, it check whether the JWT token is valid or not. For checking the validation, we use the JWT JSON Web Tokens library. The JSON Web Tokens library provides the verify of method, which consists of parameters as token value and the secret string which assigned while creating the JWT token. It checks whether the secret string is matched with the token value or not by using the verify of method. The verify of methods, if the verify of method is successfully implemented, it will returns a payload which contains the information of the valid authenticated user. If it does not matches, if the verify of method gives an error, it indicates that the JWT token is invalid. See, if I provide the wrong token, consider this API call. If I provide the wrong token, I deleted E and I made a request. See, here is the invalid JWT token. What is this invalid? Here we got an error. In this block we got an error and it will 401 as it will shows the 401 as status code and which indicates the unauthorized, and it will returns invalid JWT token. If we give the perfect JWT token which belongs to the user, and if we made a request, see we got the response successfully. It indicates it will returns the payload. It will returns the payload data, and we are attaching it to the request object, in which we if we call the next of function, it will goes to the next root handler. See, it will goes to the next root handler, and we have attached the user information to the request object, so it can be accessible by the root handler logic function, and it will do the SQL operations, and it will returns returns the response as SQL queries we given. See, now I'm gonna explain how authentication and authorization works using an API call. See, consider this get request. This is the URL and user tweets feed. It is in this URL, the user tweets feed should be matched. This API endpoint should be matched with the URL. After matching, it will goes to the authenticate JWT token, and it will checks the validity of the URL by using the verify of method, and which is provided by the JSON Web Token module. Consider like when we made a request, it will gives authentication complete authentication completed successfully. Why this text occurs? See, I have provided that in this API call, I have provided console.log of authentication completed successfully. When this will be logged? When the root handlers executed successfully. But when this root handler executed successfully, after executing this authenticate JWT token, when we made a request, the JWT token is verified in this authenticate JWT token middleware. It will check the whether the JWT token is valid or not. It will checks by using the verify of method provided by the JSON Web Token module. It will checks the my secret string, and it will returns error if it is any wrong in the JWT token. But here authentication completed successfully indicates that it will returns the payload, and the user data is attached to the request object, and the next of function is called. Next of function indicates it will calls the next middleware or the next root handler. Here in this case, the next middleware or root handler is, here we have the root handler. It will execute the root handler, and the logic present in the root handler will be executed successfully. So here we got this text in the console, and after executing, it will execute the SQL query provided by client, and here the response we got as per the SQL query, and here we got status code as 200 and OK as status text. See what actually happening in this API call. The root is protected by authentication and authorization, and only authorized users with a valid JWT token can access it. Inside the root handler, there is a logic present and it will be executed only when the authentication and authorization runs successfully. There is inside a root handler, there is a log statement indicating that the authentication was successfully completed. This log statement is executed after the authenticate JWT token middleware was verified, the JWT token and attached user information to the request object. The request object is now destructured and the username is used in the tweet query, which retrieves the data present in the table. The tweet query is constructed as an SQL query that joins multiple tables, and it sorts the tweets by date time in descending order and applies pagination using the limit and offset clauses to fetch the latest 4 tweets that starting from the offset 0. The SQL query is executed using the db connection object dot all of tweet query. The all of method is used to fetch multiple rows from a table which is present in the SQLite database, and the retrieved tweets are then mapped to a most user friendly format using map of array method, and it returns the array of object with properties username, tweet and date time. Finally, the response is sent back to the client with the array of tweet objects I have shown you before. In the summary, this API endpoint allows an authenticated user to fetch their tweet feeds, which includes the tweets from the users they are following, and it applies authentication, SQL querying, and pagination to provide the described result. Similarly, we can do this authentication in put request and delete request also. Here we have used delete request for authentication. Only the particular user can delete the tweets in the Twitter account. See, it will check the API endpoint and it will check whether the valid authentication is provided by the user or not, and it will runs the logic present in the root handler. So finally, I have created a fully backend functional social media platform that allows users to register, login and post tweets and engage with other user tweets, etc. And this project is not just about recreating Twitter's features. It is also a hands-on learning experience in the web development. And we can use server-side scripting and database management. And thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity.